My name is Bruce Hale. I'm chair of the program committee, and we've got 5 presentations today. They're all short, and you'll enjoy all of them because they're short. And we're going to kick it off with Bob Shea, who's going to talk about this Escalante River hike.
Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, Bruce asked me to go first as kind of a warm-up act to some of the more spectacular hikes. Mine is a fairly easy hike that anybody in the room can do, anywhere from an A down to D or whatever, can hike this hike up at Escalante River. Okay, the reason I chose this hike as one of my favorite hikes, you can drive up there, about a 10-hour drive, pretty much straight north from SaddleBrooke. Doesn't require a 10-hour flight across any oceans. Lots of accommodations in the area, all the way from free BLM camping, a lot of campgrounds, some moderately affordable hotels, motels, and then all the way up to $300 a night glamping type places.
Is this in Colorado?
No, I got a map here in just a second. This is southeastern Utah. I'll show you on the map here in just a second. Lots of other hikes in the area. You could easily spend 5 or 6 days based out of Escalante, do some other hikes. Calf Creek Falls, probably quite a few of you have done that. And then some very cool slot canyons, one of which is Spooky. Anybody here done Spooky Gulch? Tim Butler, yeah, there. Denny, do I see your hand up over there? Yeah. And if Denny can fit through there, I think anybody in the room can. I'm not sure Denny wants to go back through Spooky though. What else we got here? Dogs, we take our dogs hiking and they can go off leash on all of the hikes up in that area. We go in late October. The Cottonwoods, as you'll see, are just in full fall color. Natural bridges, arches along the way, and we see maybe a half a dozen people when we're out on the trails pretty much all day. So very few people up in that area. And finally, I don't really remember any of my other hikes, so I'll have to present this. Okay, this is in the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, which was established in 1996, about 2 million acres of wilderness. Here's the map, pretty much straight north. You go up through, you get up to Page, and then you can cut around and get up into Escalante. Here's the map of the trailhead itself off of All Trails. This is the trailhead itself. This is Highway 12, Utah 12, coming out from the town of Escalante. This is Escalante State Park where we camp. I think it's about 15-mile drive out here. And then the hike is either upstream, you can hike all the way back to Escalante. There's another trailhead up here, or you can hike downstream toward Lake Powell. Just another shot of the hike from the trailhead right on 12. A little side hike here that I'll show you a couple photos of up to the couple of pictograph and petroglyph panels, and then we'll be hiking down along here up into this area. Another depiction of it out of a hiking book. Thank you, Linda Merritt, for that. Here's where we camp at the state park. If any of you are campers, it's a beautiful new campground, beautiful lakeside sites. And sitting there at the campfire in the evening with our 2 dogs, Nikki and Keela, the Wonder Dogs. This is the drive out to the trailhead, a view across the National Monument. Just spectacular rock formations headed out there. Just about to the trailhead. This is looking downstream, the Escalante River, in late October. You can see the color of the cottonwoods and then the red canyon walls. This is the little side hike that we like to take up to what's called the 100 Hands panel. Up here, it's about a 20-minute side hike. 100 Hands. Pictographs. The short people would put their handprints here and the taller folks up that way. This is the bighorn panel. As you can see, the depictions of the bighorn sheep on that panel. And then we hiked a little further out and found this other panel. I think they call this the shaman panel. A little closer look at it. These happen to be anthropomorphic figures. And you're all familiar with what that is. So I won't explain it. Aliens, yeah. Some pretty cool panels just above. From above the hike, that's looking down upon the river itself, where we'll be hiking right along in here. And we go up about 3 miles and then turn around and head back. Okay, this is your standard BLM warning here at the trailhead. Okay, so this is a little sign right at the start. So us C hikers and maybe B hikers are down in here. And for you A hikers who want to stretch out your legs a little bit, you might want to take a little extra water on that if you go down to Lake Powell and back. Pretty good trip down that way. I've been both ways. I've been upstream 3 times and then downstream once. Not many people go downstream, so the trail gets kind of overgrown and faint and a little bit hard to follow. But the trails up this way, upstream, are pretty well traveled. Peggy and the pups out on the trail, colorful cottonwoods. Another depiction of the trail. Hiking. A first of 12 river crossings. And this is fair. Every time we've gone, the water's at about this level. But we see evidence of it being up higher on the banks at times. So probably not a place to be, during a rain or shortly thereafter. Oh, and for you guys, this is a little hiking tip that you can thank me later. Always send your wife out ahead in case there's a drop off or a quicksand or something like that. So.
Don't you worry about your dogs?
They can swim. Another one of the stream crossings. And further on up, getting up toward the natural bridge. This now is the Escalante Natural Bridge. And it's, this is from underneath looking up. It's quite a large natural bridge. For those of you photographers, I had to do a vertical panorama shot and take three shots and stitch them together to get it all in the frame. Okay, then just a little further up, we come upon this ruin. They call it the Cliff House Ruin. And here's another shot of it. You can hike right about up to it. I call it the zipper ruin because the inhabitants then inscribed this kind of a zipper-like feature on the rock above it. And you could see that casitas were actually popular back then as well. They have a little casita here for the grandkids and so forth to stay in. And petroglyphs, a pretty good wall of petroglyphs just below the ruin. This one you can see. Line dancing was quite popular back then.
Was it a dentist that owned that?
You got the bear paw and, pretty good little panel there of rock art. Another anthropomorphic figure. Say what?
Target store neighbor?
Yeah, that's the original #1 Target, the Bear Paw. And then further on up, this is where we turn around at what they call the Cliff House Arch, which is high above the river. And that is it for me. Do we have time for a question or two? If anybody has any questions on how to get up there, or where to stay, or that sort of thing. It wasn't cold. It's kind of like Aravaipa, you know. The first time you step in, you go, oh, it's cold, but then after a couple times, you don't even notice it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, second up is Randy Parker, trip in Switzerland.
Hi. We back in 2018, we did a hike around Mont Blanc, and we decided to extend that trip to include other places in Switzerland. And we chose to go to the Interlaken area. So we used the town of Interlaken as a base. We used trains and gondolas to get up to the hiking trails. And in that area, there are many trails and walking paths in the area. This general area is called the Bernese Oberland area. And we actually did 3 days of hiking. We did Grindelvald to Wengen, Lauterbrunnen to Muren and beyond. And day 3, we did Schingplatt out and back. Now, if you German-speaking people tell me I'm pronouncing this wrong, go ahead. It's wrong. Okay. Schingplatt. Okay. But the one we're going to concentrate on here is Grindelwald to Kleinscheidegg. And then Kleinscheidegg to Wengen. We went up 6 miles with 3,600 foot gain, and then down 4.2 miles with a 2,700 foot loss. We were in good shape from the Mount Blanc, so we could do that. All right. Interlaken is right here between these two lakes. The Bernese Oberland area is to the south, right there. And this is an artist's presentation of the area with Interlaken down here. These are the trains. These black lines and yellow lines are red lines, and some of them are gondolas or tramways. And the 3 days we'd hiked, we took the train up to Grindelwald, hiked up over this top up to here, and then down to Wengen, took the train back. The next day, we took a train up to Lauterbrunnen and hiked up in this area here. And the third day, we took the train up to Schingplatt and hiked around here. But we're going to concentrate, my pictures are from this area here. And if you notice, there's a whole bunch of mountains back here. At the tip of the arrow is the highest train station in all of Europe. It's called, it's at the base of Jungfrau Joch, which I think translates to virgin. Jungfrau translates to virgin. Next to it is Monk, and then Eiger, which is ogre or a monster. And so that's what we did. And these are the trails that are in this center area that I was pointing to. So the train went up to here to Grindelwald. We walked downhill to Grund, then took trail number 34 all the way up to Kleinscheidegg, and then trail 41 down to Wengen, and then took the train back. And the black lines are trains or gondolas, and the red and yellow lines are the hiking trails. As you can see, there's just a plethora of hiking trails all over. This is a Google Earth view of that area with Interlaken down here. And this was the hike we're talking about. And another Google Earth from Grindelvald looking up to where we hiked. And then we have another one looking down on top of Kleinscheidegg, the train station. And then the last one is looking north to Wengen. So going back to here, this is all looking south, from the north to the south. Now, this is an aerial view of Grindelwald. And you can see the train station there on the left. That's where we got off the train. And then there at the train station, we took a picture. Or I took a picture. Ignore the finger in the corner. So that's my wife, Susan, and that is Eiger in the background there. And then we walked down the hill a little bit, and this is sort of the start of the hike. And you can see the green fields and the buildings there. This is probably about an hour into the hike, and we're looking back towards Grindelwald, and that's the mountain called Wetterhorn, back in the distance there. And as we hiked, I thought that was kind of interesting, seeing that tree grow out of the rock. And we continue hiking uphill, and there you see the overhead wires for the train, but that, I believe, is Monk, the Monk Mountain in the background. And that is Jungfrau. And here we are at Kleinscheidegg at the train station. And if you were going to take the train up to Jungfrau, you transfer at this point here.
What time of year was it?
August.
Thank you.
And this is an idyllic view of Kleinscheidegg.
Is that a real picture?
That's a real picture. I didn't take that one, but I found that one. And here's a picture of the train station with Monk in the background. And there's more of the Kleinscheidegg with Eiger in the background. It's kind of hard to see through the clouds. And here we're starting to go downhill to Wengen, and that's Jungfrau again. And my wife obviously took this picture. And we are hiking down the trail to Wengen, but that's the view across the valley to a little town called Grindelvald. There we're continuing down, but we turn around and look back, and there's a little bit different view of Jungfrau. It's their most famous mountain in that area, of course. We're on the trail, and we're looking sort of northwest through the valley towards where Interlaken is located. This is the view of Wengen, about 2 miles away. Why they live up in the side of the hills like that, I don't know. And this is a view of Wengen from the opposite side of town. You can see the train there and the valley where Lauterbrunnen is down in there. And that's what we did. Any questions?
Randy, did you get a chance to climb the north face of the Eiger while you were there?
Good question. Anybody else?
Were there a lot of hikers on the trail with you?
There were a lot of hikers on a variety of the trails. This particular one, there wasn't a lot. There were some. The other 2 days that we did hiking there was a lot more people hiking where we were hiking.
What sort of altitude were you hiking at, Martha?
I just looked at it. I think the base of that valley is about 3,000 feet elevation. So we were going up to about 7,000 feet there at that train station at Kleinscheidegg.
Did you research this hike by yourself?
Yes. I researched the hikes ahead of time using a variety of resources and chose those hikes.
Next speaker is Linda Eglin, is talking about hiking in Japan.
In May last year, my younger sister Carol and her friends from South Africa invited me to join them on a trip to Japan, which included a 5-day guided walk along the Nakasendo Way. A bit of the history, that is the part that we walked, and I will tell you more about that as we go. It's in the center of Japan and is between Kyoto and Tokyo. In 1600, the Battle of Unification took place in Japan, and it was a very fierce battle, but thereafter there was a relatively peaceful period. The post-war Edo period, EDO, which ran from 1603 to 1867. At that time, they developed 2 feudal pathways that connected, as I said, the capital of Kyoto and Edo, which is now Tokyo. These routes were essential for the transfer of messages, personnel, and important goods, as well as for the government's control of the areas. The Nakasendo was the central mountain road, also known as the Kiso Kaido, passing through the Kiso River Valley. And that's Kiso town there, and that's a bridge over it, a wooden suspension bridge. Anyway, passed through this heavily forested Kiso River Valley and the heart of a highly profitable lumber industry. It was, that valley is about 44 miles long at the moment, and it lies between the Central Alps on the east and Mount Ontake on the west. Initially, the hospitality and services for this route were offered intended only for the dignitaries, samurai, the shogunate family, which was the Tokugawa family, and other legitimate officials. No one else was really meant to be on that route. However, at the height of Edo's commercial and trade growth, the trail became crowded with merchants, itinerants, laborers, commoners, and pilgrims, and was heavily patrolled at border posts and toll booths. And this picture here, actually, that's just walking along the road, but this thing here, post, and that post over there, actually represents an old border post. Okay, so to accommodate all these people that were now walking along the Nakasendo Way, there were 69 post towns, or juku, J-U-K-U, that developed along the way at roughly 2 to 4 mile intervals. So 69 towns at every 3-4 miles they're quite close together. They served to support the government offices and to provide hospitality and shelter to these foot-weary travelers. The shelters along the way included old temples, and this is, I don't know if you can make it out, but it's a forest temple. Tea houses. Tea houses occur in every little village, every little post town. And that one on the left is actually an abandoned tea house in the forest. And I don't know if that is the 300-year-old one that still exists, but there is one that's 300 years old in one of the villages. And then there was wooden structures, much like bus shelters, but bigger, that we could take a break in. And if it was raining, you'd get out of the rain. And then some people had left mugs along the way. For us now, not 200 years ago, but but now. And then there were obviously inns along the way for lodging. To give you some facts of the Nakasendo Way, the total distance today is 332 miles. The path has been altered by the course of the river and by mountain pass conditions. We did what's considered a moderate walk over 5 days of 5 to 11 miles per day. And we took train rides in between to get to other towns. And our guide, Yuki, is explaining all those figures, and those were the post towns that existed. The elevations, I can't tell you much about elevations except that we started at 1,000 feet in Nakatsugawa and it ended at Shimasu at only 1,800 feet. But in between, we actually went up to 3,890 feet, which was the Tori Hogi Pass. So if you can see this graph, I graphed out what we did, and there's little ups and downs, but it's not very much. So there's our guide showing us the map, and we are going actually from left to right. Tokyo's on the right and Kyoto's on the left, and I thought we were actually just going from right to left the way the train went, but it turned out the train took us to the furthest part, and then we walked backwards towards Tokyo, because that's the downhill way. And that's the most popular way to go. And then I said there's signposts along the way, and there are also some alerts. There was a bear one where you have to go and ring the bell if you see a bear, but we didn't see a bear and we didn't see anybody else to help us. So, having said that, there are lots of signposts. You can follow a map and you can follow an app, and it's very easy, but it's really advisable to have a tour guide, a local Japanese tour guide who knows everything. He has a wealth of knowledge that of the historical and cultural heritage, as well as the spiritual and culinary customs. He organizes all the accommodation, all the transfers of luggage and people by van and train. And he facilitates the more personal interactions with the hosts of the places where you stay. Now, the trail itself is mainly through beautiful forests with streams and bridges, and it's very therapeutic landscape. And I've put this up for you because forest bathing is in Japan is considered a healing process. So walking in the forest is meant to be very therapeutic. So you might want to just read that. And there are lots of waterways along the way as well. This is a topiary garden, but it is typical of what you see. Then the terrain itself. In the towns or the villages you go through, if they've got more than one main road, you have to know which road to take. So they've put colored pebbles and stones embedded into the asphalt to show you which road to follow. They don't want signposts everywhere in their towns. And then the one on the right is actually the old original paving stones, and those are called ishidatami. That's the word for the ancient paving stones. And they had water channels running down the side of them usually. Then there were earthen paths, normal soil paths with obstacles that we had to negotiate. And other ones with steps up and down, up, down. And thank goodness they came down, but they went up. And then there was also a bamboo forest at one stage, and they made a kind of a stepped boardwalk so that you didn't slip, because it was quite cool and mushy there. Then along the trail, there are lots of side trails to shrines, mostly Shinto shrines. And on the right, we're all walking to the right or to the side of the trail. And that's one of the customs we learned. You're not allowed to walk in the middle of the trail because that's for the deity or for more superior people. We had to walk on the edges. And then there were lots of statues and rock shrines, Buddhist as well as Shinto. And then cemeteries. There are quite a few cemeteries along the way. more modern one here is a family plot. And those little red-capped ones are actually gravestones of children. So you'd have a family with, maybe if they had children that died, they all had red caps on. And then also we learned some interesting facts, and this was called the horse chestnut baby tree, because some man who was walking along the trail found a baby abandoned in the tree, took it and looked after it, and it said, they all lived happily ever after, and they say that if you want to be fertile and have a happy life, you should drink tea made out of the bark of that tree. And then out of the forests, we didn't only walk in forests, we went through landscapes. And there were most beautiful tranquil farmlands, mostly rice paddies. And the only sound really, even that tractor didn't make much noise, but the main sound was croaking frogs. Okay, so then we come to towns. Now going back to the post towns, there are 4 well-preserved post towns out of the 69 still today, namely Magomi, Sumago, Narai, and Kariwazara. These have shops and restaurants and inns, as well as some important old buildings. And some were close to train stations, not all of them. So we had to hike to get to train stations to get to the next town where we were going to stay or not, dependent on the route. And it is said that in one town, I don't know which, I think it was the one with the staircase, Magomi, that local law prohibits cars on the main street and hide all signs of modern life in an effort to establish an ambiance of an illusion of being back in the age of the samurai. I don't know if the tourists really appreciate that, but the buildings are mostly 2-story buildings, all dark wood, and a lot of them have these red post boxes, sort of more English style than anything else, but Japanese had red post boxes at some stage. The towns are generally quiet. You don't see many people around. But if you poke your head into a shop door, you might see somebody at the back of the shop. But there's really nobody walking around. It's very quiet. Then we found artisanal goods such as this lacquer shop, which is really beautiful. And there are a lot of other artwork, knives, wood carvings like combs and chopsticks. And then, there's chopstick shop. Really nicely, beautifully presented. And then the ubiquitous vending machines. They like the 7-Elevens everywhere. Stations along the routes, at crossroads, but they were absolutely a godsend because we love them. Hot and cold drinks, anything, alcohol, no alcohol, anything you wanted, just snacky. Happily for us, Yuki knew where to find the sake distilleries. Some of them had decorative barrels, and all of them had good tastings. So our group did we didn't do a lot of tasting in the distilleries, but we drank a lot of sake. And it's best to drink it cool, not warm. Now, finally, our accommodation along the route was in ryokans. The inns are either minshuku, which are kind of lower level inns, or the ryokans, which are traditional family-run guest houses that offer bedrooms, shared bathrooms, and dining. We learned protocols pretty soon. In other words, you take your outer shoes and socks off and you leave them your shoes off and you leave them in the foyer. Then you take your outer jackets and things off, but each person is given a yukata, which is like a house kimono, or a jacket for cooler, when it's cooler. And then in the bedroom, there's tatami mats on the floor. Each person gets a futon and a duvet and quite a firm pillow. They're not comfortable the first night, but you get used to them. And there's a low table with a tea tray, and you sit on the floor or on cushions, on seats on the floor. And then, dining. The hosts take immense pride in the preparation and presentation of their cuisine. Be it breakfast or dinner, which is what we had. We always had breakfast and dinner and then breakfast. For us, our evening meal was always awaited with eager curiosity and was never disappointing. We each received an array of small dishes, which required Yuki's often required Yuki's interpretation and explanation because, we've got grasshoppers there and we've got tofu and a whole bunch of other things. I can't remember what they were, in fact, what even that meal was. I think that was dinner. And then there's breakfasts and various other things, but just wonderful, wonderful food. It tasted fabulous and it looked even better. And then after dinner, we usually went to one of the bedrooms and just kind of crashed out there and had a lot of laughing and joking and exchanging our experiences of the day. My sister Carol then took a picture and showed us how to wear the yukata and her little cloggy sandals. And we all had to wear them, so we were all just walking around in our outfits. But it's really nice. You don't have to worry about clothes, proper clothes. And then finally, when things come to an end, you've got to say goodbye. So we say goodbye to the hosts of a ryokan. And that's the very first one we actually went to. It was an old, ancient, 300-year-old establishment. It was fabulous. And they were very, very sweet. And then we all say goodbye. We say goodbye to Yuki. That girl next to him is Hana, and she's from Australia. And actually, Jen and Steve also live in Australia, although they're South Africans. But anyway, we had to say goodbye to those two, and we carried on. And we all agreed that the Nakasendo Way had actually been a wonderful walk in the natural beauty of Japan and a memorable exposure to some of its history and traditional customs. So, arigato. Thank you. All right.
Okay. Everybody hear me okay? Well, we've been to some beautiful places, haven't we, and some unique places. I want to take you to another one. One of my favorite places in the entire world is New Zealand. If it weren't so far away, we'd be over there every year for sure. So join me on the Tongariro Alpine Crossing. It's considered the best one-day walk in New Zealand and in the top 10 walks in the world. So what makes it special? Alpine tundra, active volcanoes, emerald lakes, lava craters, steam vents, rainforest, and of course, magnificent views. Track snapshot. The distance is a 12-mile one-way walk. The base elevation, 3,654 feet with an accumulated gain, 2765, and it's about a 7 to 8 hour hike or walk, as they call it in New Zealand. So those of you that are familiar with New Zealand, you know there are two islands, the North and South Island. This hike is in the volcanic region of New Zealand, which is right here, the red dot, just about 2/3 of the way down in the North Island. This is the schematic of the hike. Basically, we're starting here, one way. We're picked up here, and the Park Service provides a shuttle from trailhead to trailhead, which is very nice. This is more of a model of that area. We're starting down here. We're going to be hiking along some alpine tundra into a lava field around this volcano here, around these emerald lakes, and then we'll be picked up over here and transported back. There's a nice hotel very close to the trailhead. And this is our trailhead entrance. The mountain in the distance is called Mount Nagaruhe, 7,517 feet. It was used in 2 of the Lord of the Rings movies, and it was known as Mount Doom. Mount Doom. You may remember that from Lord of the Rings. Anyway, the Alpine crossing begins in a beautiful sort of a tundra area, 19.4 Ks. And as we walk at about a mile and 2 miles in, we get into the boardwalk that you can see here, and suddenly we're in a lava field. And then we reach a sign that says, "Stop. Are you prepared to continue your Alpine crossing?" And they want to make sure that you're appropriately attired, that the weather is adequate, and that you're fit. This hike has more rescues in New Zealand than any of the other walks, partly because so many people do it. But it can be very treacherous in bad weather. So we begin what's called the Devil's Pathway, Devil's Stairway, which goes up about 1,200 feet to what I thought was, to me, kind of like a moonscape, a very flat cratered area in which there is also life. And there's another view of Mount Doom, Mount Nagaruhe. It is climbable, but most people don't do it as part of this trek. You can see our track going along here. To climb that is another 1,000 feet, and you're climbing up volcanic scree, which means 1 step up and 2 back, and it would add another probably 4 hours to the trek. It is an active volcano. As you can see, there's a small plume at the top. And this is probably the crux of the hike. It's about a 500 ascent up to something that's called the Red Volcano. That will be the maximum altitude of the hike, which is 6,000 feet. And from there, we're looking down on volcanic lava tubes and large crevices that are beautifully colored and out over the only desert in New Zealand. As we descend from that apex, we come down to these volcanically driven lakes that are emerald colored from the lava flow and the ash. You can see the steam vents in the distance, so it is a very hot zone. Another view of that emerald lake. And this is a picture, if I can get to it, of the descent from the top of the red volcanic descent. It's all volcanic scree. Definitely poles are a necessity. On the way out, you can see the track going off in the distance along the lava fields there. And then we get to back into the Alpine tundra, and our pickup zone, we're going to be walking all the way down to this area here. It involves a series of switchbacks and multiple steam vents, as you can see here. You certainly don't want to get off track too far here. And then the beautiful part is once you get down at the base of the hike, we get into a rainforest. And for the last 2 miles or so, we're in this beautiful verdant rainforest, which contrasts so dramatically to the stark beauty of the volcanic lava fields. And then finally we reach our destination where we're picked up by the shuttle and brought back to our trailhead. So that's it, folks. Okay, any questions that I can answer? Okay.
Did you find the ring at the base?
No, I did not find the ring. No, I didn't.
What time of year did you hike it?
Oh, we were there in late February, which was a pretty ideal time of year to be in New Zealand.
What were the temperatures then?
On that hike, it was in the probably mid-50 degree, and down at the lower elevations, probably more like 65 degrees and fairly humid in the rainforest.
Thanks.
Who was your hiking partner?
Moi. I did it by myself. Yeah. But along with about 200 of my closest friends.
I'll be done.
It's a very, very popular hike in New Zealand.
Okay, lastly, we've got Tim Butler talking about the wave and Cottonwood Cove.
Cottonwood Cove, Coyote Buttes South. Okay, most of you know about the wave. It's a gorgeous place. It's hard to get to because it's hard to get the permit. I probably put in 30 times in the last 6 or 7 years for a wave permit. I've been fortunate enough to get permits 3 times. The first time was with, where did Walt go? Oh, there he is. Walt and Tiggy Shields, 2015. What a trip. And then second time, 2021, my wife and I went in March. I kept putting in for the lottery. Finally In July of last year, I got a permit for October for the wave. Once I knew I was going there, I got on the website for Coyote Butte South. Coyote Buttes North is the location of the wave. Coyote Buttes South, which is about 4 or 5 miles south of the wave, has a wonderful area called the Cottonwood Cove Teepees. So I got a permit for that. That permit is actually quite a bit easier to get than the wave permit. And so I made a back-to-back trip in there. 1 day in the wave, 1 day at Cottonwood Cove. To give you a kind of a sense of where this is, here's Page, here's Lake Powell, Highway 89 going north, Highway 89A going south. This is the Paria Plateau. These are the beautiful Vermilion Cliffs that you can see as you're driving up to Page. They're about 2,000 feet high from the highway up to the top of the plateau. The plateau is about 400 square miles of flat, sandy terrain. The red circle there is where the wave is. The blue circle is where Cottonwood Cove is. The yellow circle up there is Cobra Arch. Some of you have been there, and some of you are going there on our trip to Page, our club trip to Page next month. And the blue or the black circle is the White Pocket. Okay, so here's the wave, classic shot. One website that I really suggest that you go to if you're interested in the wave, anything about the wave, is this website, thewave.info. It is fabulous. I'm not going to talk about the permit situation now. If you have any interest in it, email me. I've got a whole write-up on the permit process for both Coyote Buttes North, the wave, and Coyote Buttes South. So I treated myself, actually my wife allowed me to do this. For my third trip into the wave, I wanted to get to some very interesting places at the top of the wave formation that I hadn't been able to travel to in my previous 2 times. So I hired a guide that I had met earlier on an earlier trip into this area, Tyler Hunter of Lake Powell Scenic Tours. Excellent guide. It was really worth the money. We got up, he picked me up at 5:45 from my hotel. It's an hour and 20-minute drive to the trailhead. We started hiking at, well, actually about 6:45. Got into the wave. This is the entrance to the wave. Got into the wave at just sunrise. Gorgeous time. We were the first ones in there. Kind of a busy slide here, but the 2 times that I had been there before, I did what I think we would call the standard wave loop. You come in, you hike into the wave, you hike to the second wave, then you hike over to Sand Cove, then you hike actually down this way, and down to an area called Fatali's Boneyard, which has some incredibly interesting rock formations, and then on out by the dinosaur tracks and back out to the trailhead. This time, the red line is the route we took, and here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to see Top Rock Arch, the alcove, and Melody Arch and the grotto. And believe me, I'm so glad I had the guide to get me up there. It's not an easy hike. So here we are climbing out of the wave on our way to the second wave, just as the sun is coming up. This is the second wave. I've been in there now 3 times, but both times before I had been in there when the sun was full on. It's a beautiful formation, but in the early morning light, it's much more colorful. It was the colors just pop. The purples and the browns are just spectacular in that light. From the second wave, we began climbing up to Top Rock Arch, which is that little hole in the wall up there. And that's the slope you have to encounter when you're climbing up there. So Tyler was really good about showing me exactly where to put my feet and scramble. And it's hard work. But so here's finally we got to the back of Top Rock Arch, looking through the arch down to the wave. And if you look closely enough, if you're sitting close enough to the screen, you can see a few people down there in the wave, but it's a spectacular shot. From there, we walked around and over to a formation called the Cove, which doesn't look too impressive from a distance, but when you get in it, it's absolutely huge. That's my guide. Spectacular. And then we went to what he calls the creme de la creme. This is Melody Arch with the grotto behind it, and in the grotto there is a window. There's Tyler looking in the grotto, looking out the window. This is the view from the window looking south. You can see Coyote Buttes, the teepees, the north and south teepees, those formations in the background. The butte in the background on the skyline is where the white pocket is. So, having had my great day at the Wave, my next morning I met my outfitter from Perea Outpost and Outfitters near Big Water, between Page and Kanab, and we went into Cottonwood Cove. What a fantastic area, and it really is worth your time to try to get there. Again, I'm not going to go through the permit stuff. It's a long drive. Mileage-wise, it's probably about 80 miles from Page, but it's really long because the last 15 miles going in are on a very sandy, rutted road, and you're averaging about 10 miles an hour if you're lucky. This is my guide, Angie. She got us in there in that rig, and I'm sure glad we were using her rig instead of my pickup. So here we are hiking into the Coyote Buttes, Cottonwood Cove teepees. She calls this area Cartoon Land, and it's really an appropriate description. The colors are unbelievable. This is some more of the fantastic formations. Looking north, the cliffs on the right-hand side of the slide rise up above Buckskin Gulch. These are two iconic formations in there. The one on the right is called the Control Tower, or Dali's Rock, and the one kind of center left is the Witch's Hat. This is another kind of famous formation in there called Half and Half Rock, with the teepees in the background. From a slot near the formation called the Southern Wave, you look north, and this is a formation called the Pancakes. So last slide here, this is the Southern Wave. It truly is a wave-like formation. Just a spectacular sight. So that's my pictures of the hikes.